County. And when that country music hits, you know it's time for another hour long of sports talk radio right here on 95.3 WCHE. This is Locker Room Buzz, and I'm CJ Tully here on February 11th, 2026, and we have ourselves a big show today. We have ourselves finally a Super Bowl champion. We'll get into everything that happened there in the Super Bowl, not so Super Bowl as some may say. We also have the World Baseball Classic just around the corner. The Phillies, they're headed to spring training, and they're still looking to get rid of some players. We'll talk about all of that. Also with the Super Bowl and some things that came out with all of that, I want to talk about where we can see teams going next year, some things that the Patriots and the Seahawks might have taught us about the state of the NFL. Also, we have the USA hockey team hitting the ice for the first time tomorrow in the Olympics. We'll talk some hockey and some stick and puck with all of that. But starting off here, let's talk about the Super Bowl, as we know that was the biggest thing going on in sports. Some of you may have seen my post on 95.3's Instagram there talking about my predictions headed into the game. That was a great game there between the Patriots and the Seahawks. Now, it didn't really get any juice in the game until the fourth quarter there. It was the Seahawks with a dominant win, 29-13, my prediction being 32-13, so almost got there on the Seahawks' final drive, but they did not decide to kick the field goal. But it was a game. That is for sure. It was a game. Sam Darnold coming into this one had himself a great story. We know he bounced around from team to team, got drafted by the Jets in 2018. He left there in 2020. He then bounced from the Panthers to the 49ers. Finally started to find his way last year with the Minnesota Vikings. They still did not have enough faith in him. They wanted to go with J.J. McCarthy, and now they might be biting their tongue on that one because Sam Darnold goes in, wins the Super Bowl. He goes 19 for 38, 202 yards with a touchdown. Obviously not his best game, of course, but he did enough. He managed the game. He let the defense get after Drake May, and that was really the difference there, was how well the Seahawks defense was able to play. I said coming into this game, I just didn't see a way to take the Patriots unless they were able to stop the Seahawks on three different levels of football. They would have to stop them on offense, defense, and special teams. And in all of those realms, we saw the Patriots just not able to match what the Seahawks were able to do. With the running attack here, we saw for the Seahawks, Kenneth Walker III. He goes for 27 carries on 135 yards, almost found himself in the end zone. There was a holding call that pulled that back. Would have been about a 50-yard touchdown there for Kenneth Walker. He also was your MVP in this game, the Super Bowl MVP. We saw him down in Disney with Sam Darnold yesterday, so that was exciting to see. But Kenneth Walker, a lot during the season, wasn't able to find himself in the end zone. They were giving those snaps away. He turned into a whole different player, though, as it did hit the playoffs. He was going for 50-plus yards each game. He had 135 in this one, as I mentioned before. So a big showing by Kenneth Walker. He's going to be a free agent now after this season, so we'll see what team wants to bring him on. Do the Seahawks bring him back on a longer extension? We will have to see. We also saw Cooper Kupp, the leading receiver in this one, 6 receptions for 61 yards. We know he was a Super Bowl MVP at one time in his career there with the Rams, so it's good to see Cooper Kupp getting involved as well here with the Seattle Seahawks. JSN, he was a decent part of this game. He did get hurt, which put him out for a while in this matchup. He went 4 receptions for 27 yards. Like I said, he was injured, though, so we didn't get to see the full JSN experience here in the Super Bowl. And A.J. Barner, the guy I was saying was going to have such a big Super Bowl, he goes 4 receptions for 54 yards and a touchdown, being the first touchdown scorer late in that third quarter. So we were able to see A.J. Barner have himself a day, only 2 receptions in the playoffs. Leading into this one, he has doubled that here, 54 yards and a touchdown. So a big day for A.J. Barner. Did not get the rushing yards I needed, but glad to see him get that first touchdown. Put a little extra money in the account after the Super Bowl. This defense, though, for the Seahawks was the storyline. They were phenomenal all season long. We've seen this in pretty much every game. Now, they let up 21 points to the 49ers in the NFC Championship game, so there's a little part of me that was saying maybe they're not going to be able to completely stop the Patriots here, but, I mean, they showed up in a big way here. 6 sacks, 2 interceptions, and a fumble recovery, as Drake May was just not his best in this game. Now, somebody who could have been the Super Bowl MVP had Kenneth Walker not had 135 yards, could have been Jason Myers. He went 5 for 5 on field goals with a long of 41. He was responsible for 17 points of the Seahawks, 29 points in the Super Bowl. Again, there was up for debate. Could Jason Myers win the Super Bowl MVP? I didn't think they were ever going to give it to a kicker. We could have seen that before as well in that Super Bowl with the Rams and the Patriots where there wasn't much offense. They still decided not to give it to a kicker, although I think the punter would have been a better one in that one. But we did not see Jason Myers win the MVP, and I think that just goes to show you that there will never be a kicker winning MVP here, as it was Kenneth Walker without a touchdown getting the MVP just due to his yardage. So interesting to see that. Now, we did have the Patriots on the field as well in this game. Not much of the offense, though. Drake May, 27 for 43, 295 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 very costly interceptions. He was also their lead rusher with 37 yards, which is something I like to see out of Drake May. We hadn't seen it all too much throughout the playoffs. He didn't really need to do it that much, but he was a big guy on his legs throughout the regular season. So it was good to see him getting involved there, creating some extra space. I know there was a big 15-yard rush by Drake May at one point in that game to give them a first down. So that part of Drake May I like to see. I like to see him getting a little bit more aggressive when he needed to. It just was a little too much too late. Ramondre Stevenson was the lead rusher in this one with 7 carries and 23 yards. Receiving-wise, he had 40 yards for a touchdown, and that touchdown, he picked that right off the grass. That was a great catch there by Ramondre Stevenson. Somebody said had to be the difference maker if the Patriots were going to have a chance in this one was going to be Trevion Henderson, and he just wasn't the difference maker in this one at all. 6 carries for 19 yards. He did hit his over on yards, though. I believe it was 18.5, so just got there. He also had 3 receptions and 26 yards receiving. He also had a lot of opportunity receiving. They were giving him those screen pass opportunities. He was just going backwards or just going nowhere at all, just wasn't able to grab the ball. So there were opportunities for Trevion Henderson to become the difference maker. He just did not fully take those opportunities and run with them. No pun intended there, but the defense was absolutely atrocious in this game here for the Patriots. Just 1 sack, no turnovers. The only bright spot in this game for the Patriots on defense would have been Christian Gonzalez, who pretty much saved this game from being an absolute slaughtering early in this one. He had 4 tackles and 3 pass deflections, a few of those coming at plays that would have been either touchdowns or brought you about 30 yards advanced. So Christian Gonzalez saved this game early. They gave the Patriots a chance, did Christian Gonzalez, but just was not enough, and it ended up being the Seahawks in this one, 29-13. And I think there's a lot of takeaways that you could take from this Super Bowl, more so than just the final score and these teams. I want to start off here by talking about Drake May. Drake May not have had the easiest, or he did have the easiest schedule this regular season, which was something that a lot of people had gone back and forth on him about, was Drake May shouldn't be MVP because of the cakewalk schedule. That comes with the fact that you are such a bad team the year prior. You're going to play the bottom teams in each division with that. So Drake May did have an easy schedule. I don't think he's going to be the same player next year. This year he threw for 4,300 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. He was also number 1 in QBR with a 77.1 QBR. So a phenomenal season by Drake May, by no doubt. I mean, he had a phenomenal year. He led his team to where they needed to in the Super Bowl. Just could not get over that hump. Now, I do also want to point out that he played some phenomenal defenses in this playoff series. He was able to play the Chargers, played the Texans, and then he finished things off with the Broncos. So those were some great defense that he was able to get around. The offense never really had to do too much, though. So in a game where you were playing a phenomenal defense like the rest of those, but you played an offense that was better than anything you have touched, that's where things were going to start to come into question. That's where I think I needed to see the Patriots just be better in every aspect of the game, and they just could not get that done. So Drake May, phenomenal season. But can he put those same numbers up next year? Now, in front of me, I have the schedule of who they're going to play next year. The dates are not necessarily out yet, but we'll start here with their home games. They're going to have the Bills, the Broncos, the Packers, the Raiders, the Dolphins, the Vikings, the Jets, and the Steelers. Those are all at home. They might have 1 or 2 wins there. We'll see what the Raiders can be with bringing in Fernando Mendoza, but they might have 1 or 2 wins there with the Jets and the Raiders next season. They're away opponents. This is where it gets actually insane. They're going to have the Bills, the Bears, the Chiefs, the Lions, the Jaguars, the Chargers, the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Seahawks in a Super Bowl rematch. This is going to be no cakewalk here for Drake May and this Patriots team next year. There's going to be a lot of question marks as to whether or not this was a fluky season, whether or not the Patriots are going to be able to get back to the Super Bowl. Because, I mean, you look at this. Let's just look at it here. The Bills, that's probably a loss. Bears, probably a loss. Chiefs, we'll see. I'll say that's probably a loss, though. The Lions could be a loss. Jaguars could be a loss. Chargers, a loss. And then you could probably beat the Dolphins and the Jets. You're going to lose to the Seahawks. You're going to lose to the Bills. You're going to lose to the Broncos. Probably lose to the Packers. Probably lose to the Vikings and the Steelers. I mean, that's 11 losses right there. I don't know that this Patriots team is going to get back to the Super Bowl as quickly. I think they got lucky with having, I don't want to say lucky because they put themselves in that position, but they got to play an easier schedule. This year is not going to be that whatsoever. Being the top seed, or being one of the top seeds, and then being the team that wins your division, you're going to have to play some hard competition. Their out in all of this is going to be that they get to play the Dolphins and the Jets twice a year, so they're guaranteed pretty much 4 wins. But this is not going to be an easy schedule here going forward for the Patriots. Now, other than just the game, we also had the commercials and the halftime show. Kid Rock did a great job. Looking here at the commercials, though, I want to give you guys some of my favorites. If you had any of your own, feel free to call in at 610-701-9243. Let me know your favorite commercials there. Some of my favorites, the Liquid IV commercial. There was a bunch of toilets talking and then talking about if your pee was yellow enough or not, so I thought that was funny. A good commercial there, a unique one that we haven't ever seen. The Duncan commercial, I think everybody's been a big fan of this one. You saw a lot of the old sitcom main characters or side characters coming into that one. It was you saw Joey Tribbiani from Friends. There was Rachel from Friends. You saw Urkel. You saw Carlton from Fresh Prince. And you saw George from Seinfeld. So it was a lot of fun, that commercial. Tom Brady was in there as well. Duncan usually puts on good commercials, especially since they started getting some new people involved there. So that was a good one. I also like the tight end commercial here for prostate cancer examination. It took me a bit to understand where they were going with it, but it was a commercial with all of the NFL's greatest tight ends. And I ended up saying to unclench and get yourself checked for prostate cancer. So I thought that was a creative way to get a message across. I also have Bruce Arians in there as well. So a great commercial that's unique. As always, I like the unique ones. I feel like sometimes we can get very trapped in the same things over and over, just reverbed by different companies. So a unique one there to get your very important point across there with prostate cancer. Also the Budweiser one, they always have one of the best. This year going to Freebird with the eagle being raised with the horse and then flying off them. I mean, that was patriotic as all heck. So enjoyed that one as well. There was a lot of AI commercials this year. I'm somebody who's actually only used AI once in my life, so those never necessarily correlate to me. I don't know necessarily how they all get worked. There was also the karaoke one where you were singing, I think it was Backstreet Boys during the karaoke part of the commercial, so that was an interesting one. But other than that, none really stuck out to me. Those were definitely my favorite commercials of the Super Bowl. When we come back from this quick break, I want to give you guys some more insight on some things that the Super Bowl might have taught us about the NFL and where we can look going forward. So stay tuned here on 95.3 WCHE. Back to Let's Talk Sports, the Locker Room Buzz. I'm CJ Tully here with the latest in sports. You can always check me out here on Wednesdays 11 to 12 right here on 95.3 WCHE. Like I said before, I still think that there was a lot taught to us with the Super Bowl, and not even just the Super Bowl, but the season that we had in football. First thing I want to talk about here is, are the days of waiting years to complete a do-over or to start completing your rebuild, are those out the door? You look at some teams and what they've been able to do this season in the college level and in the professional football league. So first looking off here at the Patriots, they bring in Mike Vrabel here on his first year. He goes to the Super Bowl. With that team, he also had Drake May in his second year. And after going 4-13 last year, they found themselves in the Super Bowl. So from going from 4-13, you bring in a new head coach and a second-year quarterback, and you're able to go to the Super Bowl. So maybe that whole waiting and bringing in this guy and that guy, you might not need to do that anymore. This continues with the Seahawks. They bring in Mike McDonald on his second year and Sam Darnold in his first year with the Seahawks, and they went from 10-7 last year to just 14-3 this year. So again, we're starting to see that progression where you just need a few minor adjustments and your team can end up in the Super Bowl. And this was most seen here in the college level with the Indiana Hoosiers and Kirk Cignetti. His second year with the Indiana Hoosiers, they bring in Mendoza. He wins Heisman and they win the national championship. And that's all just in a few years of reworking things. You bring in some talent, and I think you're going to see this a lot more in the college level that you don't need to wait because of the NILs and everything else, and you can transfer people over immediately and get that immediate change. You're not going to be seeing teams horrible. I mean, we can look at the Jets and maybe the Dolphins as teams that are just going to be horrible forever. The Titans, another one, because they just don't bring in the talent to fix anything. But maybe it just takes a tweak here and there to get your team to a Super Bowl appearance or a national championship appearance in college football. So maybe those days of needing the draft picks, or if you're a Sixers fan, the trust the process days might be over in football at least. I don't know about some other sports. I mean, baseball, you're kind of seeing teams just need to tweak here and there, but basketball I'm not too sure of, and same with hockey. But some teams might just be one piece away to completely changing everything. And I think that's why you're starting to see so many teams and coaches the coaches get fired and teams bringing in new people every year, whether that be an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, a new head coach. Your reign on how long you can be there is getting cut by a lot, because I think teams are starting to see the fact that, okay, so the Patriots just brought in they bring in Mike Vrabel, and they're automatically just in the Super Bowl because he changed that culture. He was able to work with the pieces that weren't able to work for the Patriots last year. So maybe if we just switch out our head coach, maybe we'll see that difference be made. And I think you're going to be able to start to see that here with a few teams. I'm going to give you guys my team that I believe right here, as we're sitting here on February 11th, 2026, that I believe could be the Patriots of next year. Now, they might not make the Super Bowl, but they're going to be a team that changes enough to make a deep playoff run. The team I'm taking are the New York Giants. They were also 4-13 this past year. They now bring in Jim Harbaugh to change that entire culture and everything that they're working with now with the Giants. You were dealt with some injuries last year. I thought the team had some some hope going in to maybe not be a bottom-tier team, but they had some injuries with Cam Scatterbo and Malik Neighbors, which made them pretty much uncompetitive for a majority of the end of that season. Jackson Dart, in his rookie campaign, he goes for 2,200 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. He also rushes for 487 yards and 9 touchdowns. I hope to see him run a little bit less just to keep his health up, but if you compare that with Malik Neighbors and a healthy Cam Scatterbo where you're not going to have to necessarily run yourself to the ground, I could see the Giants becoming that new team that takes that next step. And not even just that, but we can see them bringing some help in the draft. And I think that they're going to be taking in the first round Carnell Tate out of Ohio State, another wide receiver. And if you pair him with Malik Neighbors, with Cam Scatterbo, and Jackson Dart has all those weapons at his disposal, I could see the Giants completely turning everything around. You look at the NFC East right now, the Eagles, as an Eagles fan, I can tell you, they are falling apart right now. I'll get into that in just a bit. You also look at the Commanders. I don't know where their next step is. Jaden Daniels has not been healthy. That team, they bought in very early with that team. They got some veteran players in there. They brought in an Eckler. They brought in an Ertz, thinking that they were just those pieces away. They bring in Deebo Samuel. They're going to now have to rework everything to get a younger team, a more competitive team. They traded out one of their best young talents in Jahan Dotson over to the Eagles for pretty much just quarters. So they're going to need to rebuild. I don't see the Commanders being competitive for a while. Then you look at the Cowboys. They're the Cowboys. Maybe they'll be good next year. Maybe they won't. We'll never know. They bring in Pickens back on his deal, so we'll see if they can build something there with the Cowboys. But I do think the Giants are a sleeper team here to make this kind of run. And I mentioned before, with a team like the Patriots, how they were so bad this past year, or 2 years ago, where they got an easier schedule this year. Looking at the schedule the Giants are going to have, I could see them finding a way to get at least 13 wins here. They're going to play the Cowboys at home, Eagles at home, Commanders at home, and these are all going to be home games. The Browns, the Saints, the Cardinals, the 49ers, the Jaguars, and the Titans. I can see them winning a majority of those games at home. Their away games, of course, you're going to have the Cowboys, Eagles, Commanders. These are going to get a little bit tougher. You're going to have the Lions, the Texans, the Colts, the Rams, and the Seahawks. Again, not horrible. You can manage to win a few of those games, especially the division games. I think those will be up for grabs. The Lions, we'll see where they're at. The Texans, is C.J. Stroud going to turn things around or not? Colts, are they going to bring back Daniel Jones? He's still somebody who's going to be a free agent this year. The Rams, they'll be tough, and the Seahawks obviously will be tough as well, but I could see the Giants flipping things to a possible 13-win season, and they could find themselves in a playoff run. And if John Harbaugh is able to turn this around for them, that'd be another notch in the belt of, hey, maybe it is just a new voice in the locker room that's needed for some of these teams. And I can see John Harbaugh being that kind of presence here for the Giants with a young team. And I like the fact that they are a young team because you're starting to see how college football is changing as well. A lot of players are staying in college a lot longer because they know they're getting paid whether or not they're in the NFL or in college. That's just the way things are working out with the NIL. You can love it or hate it, but if they're able to keep some of these players, these younger players, Cam Scatterbo's developing into what he is as long as he keeps his head right. You have Malik Neighbors on the outside. Like I keep saying, you're going to have Carnell Tate on the outside as well. That's who I'm taking them to draft. If those weapons can start developing for you early and Jackson Dart can continue to get better and better with this younger talent, plus the defense, not even to mention this defense, you have Abdul Carter over there on the line. I'm sure they'll bring in some more defensive talent as well in the draft. This Giants team can really turn things around and be a competitor here in the NFC, and I would not be surprised if you find them in a deep playoff run next year, just like you saw with the Patriots this past season. Continuing on here with the NFC East, though, I do want to talk about the Eagles because I think there's some correlation between the Seahawks and the Eagles and how they might be able to rework some things to kind of take a note off what the Seahawks did. So last offseason, we saw the Seahawks get rid of DK Metcalf. He goes over to the Seahawks. They get rid of DK Metcalf, and he goes over to the Steelers. That could be a correlation to A.J. Brown. Now, let me cook real quick. DK Metcalf was obviously phenomenal for them, but it wasn't working. There was a difference in opinion and things, so they let him go, and they let him go over to the Steelers. Now DK has a solid season over there. Could we see this being the same as A.J. Brown? You lose that big-name guy who you think your team is going to fall apart without, and the Seahawks go and they win a Super Bowl this past year. Now, who was responsible for making up all of the loss that you got there with DK Metcalf? That was Jackson Smith and Jigba. Now, who would correlate to the Eagles in that? That would be Devontae Smith. We could see Devontae Smith turn into this number one wide receiver who goes into an Offensive Player of the Year caliber player because that's what we saw with JSN. And maybe you don't lose so much with losing A.J. Brown as people might think. Again, you're correlating A.J. Brown to DK Metcalf as they leave the team, and you're going to have a JSN who steps up in a big time and he gets Offensive Player of the Year, and you would step up with a Devontae Smith as well for the Eagles. You would also have to now bring in some lower-end help to help out Devontae Smith. I don't know if Jahan Dotson's going to come back. You'd have to draft a few wide receivers, but there's some depth here in this wide receiver core here for the Eagles to be able to look at here in the draft. So I don't necessarily hate this idea. Looking at the numbers here with JSN before and after we saw DK Metcalf on the team. His rookie year, he goes for 628 yards and 4 touchdowns. That was with DK, of course. 2024, DK's last year there, he goes for 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns, so his production started to go up. And then this past year where he wins Offensive Player of the Year without DK, 1,700 yards and 10 touchdowns. I know a lot of people's fears, and one of my biggest fears with losing AJ is maybe you're able to cover Devontae Smith a little bit more and he's not going to be able to produce as much for you. But looking here, I mean, their build is somewhat similar from JSN to Devontae Smith. Now, Smith is a very skinny guy. Like, it looks like he's going to break every time he gets touched. But I think you could start to see, and again, I think we're also forgetting that Devontae Smith was a Heisman for Alabama in college football. He could be a number one wide receiver on any other team. If you lose A.J. Brown, I think you're only going to see the production of Devontae Smith go up, and he goes up for those balls. I mean, he puts his body on the line week in and week out, and I don't believe you're going to see this giant drop-off in production if you lose A.J. Brown. Now, A.J. Brown is coming out saying that it seems like A.J. Brown is going to be coming back here with the Eagles, but if the right price is out there, and you could trade for maybe a D lineman, as you're going to be losing a few of those, or maybe you bring in, I don't know, I think defense is where you really got to look, maybe some draft picks as well, but if you could really start to revamp this team, make them a defense-dominant team, because I do think that's the way that football is trending right now, that it's going to be more of a luxury to have a great offense than it is to have a great defense, because you look at the Seahawks, they are more so built on the defensive end of the ball, and then their offense was just phenomenal with the weapons they had, but they didn't necessarily build around that offense. They brought in Sam Darnold with still a question mark on his head as to how he was going to be, but that defense was phenomenal all season long, and they even made up for games where Darnold was throwing interceptions. That defense still kept you involved in these games, so maybe losing A.J. Brown wouldn't be the biggest detriment to the team. It would help out the locker room. You can maybe bring in some more defensive talent, work this team around the defense, draft a wide receiver, work with Devontae Smith as your number one, let Hurts settle in with what he's going to have, see if Saquon can get back to his days. Maybe you draft a running back late. I don't know about that. Maybe you can get a Jadavion Price late in the, or Jadarian Price late in that one from Notre Dame. Maybe he could be a running back that you look to for the future. But I do think there's a chance here that the Eagles can get rid of Brown and still get better than just where they've been. It's kind of that trap that the Phillies are in right now. But I do think that we will see A.J. Brown depart, and I don't think it'll be the worst thing for the team. But we come back from this quick timeout. I have a lot to get to with baseball and the World Classic coming up and spring training right around the corner. So stay tuned here on 95.3 WCHE. Back to Locker Room Buzz. I'm CJ Tully, and like I said before the break, World Baseball Classic is right around the corner, and the rosters have been finalized. I'm going to give you guys the top 3 teams I think it's the top 4 actually, that I believe have a chance in the World Baseball Classic. Some of the biggest names you can find on those rosters as well to keep an eye on. I'm also going to give you guys some of the Phillies that are involved in the World Baseball Classic. So let me start off with that here. First off is Jose Alvarado. He'll be playing for Team Venezuela. You're going to have Bryce Harper. He's on Team USA. Brad Keller is on Team USA as well, the guy we just brought in from the Cubs. You have Max Lazar. He'll be playing for Israel. Aaron Nola playing for Italy. Like I keep saying, he just throws up meatballs. Dante Nori, he'll be playing for Italy as well. Johan Rojas on Team Dominican Republic. We'll be very curious if he touches the field, seeing how great that team is going to be over there for the Dominicans. Christopher Sanchez, he is also on Team Dominican Republic. Kyle Schwarber is on the United States. Mundo Sosa getting some time for Panama. Garrick Stubbs is on Israel as well. And Taiwan Walker playing for Team Mexico. So who are some of the biggest teams to keep an eye on, and where can we see the most MLB talent? Because, of course, those are the games you're going to be watching the most, is the ones with the MLB talent, the names that you remember. So let's go over a few of those. Starting off here is Team Dominican Republic, and when I name some of these guys, this is where you're going to know that where I come from with the fact that Johan Rojas may never touch the field. Starting off at first base, you're going to have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Also at first base will be Carlos Santana. So you'll have those two working there over at first base. The second base is going to be Ketel Marte over from the Diamondbacks. At third base, you're going to have Junior Caminero as well as Manny Machado. You're going to have Agustin Ramirez at catcher as well as Austin Wells, which I did not know he was Dominican, but he'll be over there with the Dominican Republic. In outfield, you're going to have O'Neal Cruz, Julio Rodriguez, and Johan Rojas. So, again, where is Johan fitting into all of that? Left-handing pitching, you're going to have Wandy Peralta, Christopher Sanchez, Gregory Soto, former Phil there, Juan Soto, and right field, and you're going to have Fernando Mendoza in right field as well. Pitching, you're going to have Sandy Alcantara, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Camilo Doval, Carlos Estevez, former Philly as well, Dennis Santana, and Luis Severino. Those are some more of those guys. And then down here we have Jeremy Pena, Geraldo Perdomo, and Ahmed Rosario. That team is stacked. Do not get me wrong. I still don't believe that is the best team, though, in the Baseball Classic. Going over to Team Japan, and I'm going to try my best to say all these names. Some of the names that you guys may know headed into the World Baseball Classic. Munakata Mukarakami. And the DH, you're going to have Shohei Ohtani. He's not going to be pitching here. That was something that he had come up with the Dodgers. Masataka Yoshida, he'll be coming over from the Red Sox. Yushi Kokochi, you're going to have Yuki Matsui. You're going to have Seiya Suzuki over from the Cubs. Yuki Matsumoto, he'll be pitching for them. And Yoshida Yamamoto coming over from the Dodgers, he'll be pitching for Team Japan. Team USA here as well. This is the team that I believe is the best, and that is not being biased whatsoever. Just the talent on this team is going to be incredible. You have Paul Goldschmidt, Bryce Harper, Bryce Terang, Alex Bregman, Cal Raleigh, Will Smith, Byron Buxton, Pete Crow Armstrong, Kyle Schwarber, Corbin Carroll, Matt Boyd, Garrett Cleavinger, Clayton Kershaw making an appearance here. That'll be interesting to see. Tarek Skubal, Gabe Spear, Aaron Judge, he'll be the captain here for the team. David Bednar, Clay Holmes, Griffin Jacks, who is a phenomenal reliever for the Twins, Brad Keller, Nolan McLean, Mason Miller, Joe Ryan, Paul Skeens will be pitching here for the Team USA team, Logan Webb, Michael Waka, Garrett Whitlock, Gunnar Henderson, my guy, Bobby Witt Jr., my brother's guy, and Ernie Clement coming over from the Blue Jays. So that team, in my opinion, has the most depth of any of these teams. Here for Team Venezuela, this is the last team that you'll know a lot of names on. Luis Arias, Wilson Contreras, Gleyber Torres, Andres Jimenez, Mikel Garcia, Eugenio Suarez, who just got signed by the Reds, William Contreras, Salvador Perez, Jackson Chirio, Jose Alvarado, former Phil Ranger Suarez will be getting the go here, Willer Abreu, Ronald Acuna Jr., who was actually in the Super Bowl halftime show, and Pablo Lopez are the biggest names there playing for Team Venezuela. That team has a shot as well, so I do believe this will be the final four teams. We'll see how everything works out with the groups and everything. Team USA will get their first go. I believe it's March 3rd that they'll be going in their first pool play game. Yes, March 3rd against the Giants. That'll be a bit of a tune-up game there for the team. And then March 6th, they'll begin tournament play against Team Colombia. So that'll be coming up March 6th. So we'll have a few shows to break down that game. Before we get there, we'll have some spring training in there as well. And speaking of spring training, I want to get into a little bit of the Phillies here. They're still looking to dump Nick Castellanos by the time spring training starts. Now, that starts today. So I don't know how long they're going to wait to necessarily drop these guys. They do want to get rid of Nick Castellanos, so they've made that a real point. He turns 34 on March 4th, so he's getting a lot older. His production last year was .250 with 17 home runs and 72 RBIs in 147 games. Now, this was one of the first seasons he did not play the entirety of the season. There was obviously that dispute between whatever he said when Rob Thompson took him out. We still don't know. I hope we someday do know what he said, because it obviously has changed the entire team's perspective of Nick Castellanos, and more so than anything, of Rob Thompson's perspective of Nick Castellanos, to make him want to get rid of him so badly that they're willing to just drop his contract. Now, I think the Phillies messed up with saying that they're going to drop this contract if they're unable to get rid of him, because now what team is going to want to trade for a guy that they can most likely just pick up in free agency? That's where I think the Phillies messed up this entire Nick Castellanos situation. They should have honestly tried to get rid of him last trade deadline a little bit harder than they did, so that you weren't stuck in this position. Because now you're bringing in Adolis Garcia. Your outfield is still going to have Brandon Marsh. You're going to now have Justin Crawford. That seems to be the setup for your outfield. Now, I don't like that outfield whatsoever, and I don't think Nick Castellanos is all that bad. You look at him compared to Adolis Garcia, and I'd still rather have Nick Castellanos over Adolis Garcia right now, just given what they're able to do in the past few seasons. With that being said, the Phillies seem to have no interest in bringing Nick Castellanos back. So can they get anything? In my opinion, no. If you're a team and you're going to trade for Nick Castellanos, that's pretty dumb, knowing that you could just get him in free agency if you wait a few weeks. So we'll see what happens with that. He was on a $100 million contract for 5 years, so the Phillies would have to eat just about $20 million of that if they are to just let him fall. So, again, they put themselves in a really bad position here, given the fact that they said openly that they will not be bringing him back, but yet they can't find any takers to want to bring him in. And again, I don't know if any of this comes down to the fact that nobody knows where the issues came with why the Phillies are so quick to want to get rid of him, what he said to Rob Thompson to make that hatred so known throughout the season. So we'll see. Again, I don't think he's going to get traded. I think if anyone trades for him, maybe it's the Marlins, but I still don't know what you're getting back from any team right now for Nick Castellanos. Maybe a late draft pick, but what does that even do for you in baseball? We'll see. We'll see. I don't think they handled this well whatsoever. I don't like the outfield that we're going to be running with in coming into spring training right now. It's going to be Justin Crawford, Adolis Garcia, and Brandon Marsh. You're going to have Otto Kemp. He'll be able to float around as utility for the infield and outfield. Same with Edmundo Sosa. We'll see if they want to bring him back in the outfield as well. I'm just not too sure. We're going to have a lot coming up here about spring training and some of the things I love, getting into the Valentine's Day theme here. Some things I love heading into spring training about some teams, and the Phillies are something that I just can't say I'm overly excited about right now heading into spring training. The lineup is just too much of the same. Can Bryson Stott turn it around? Can Alec Bohm find himself? There's just too many question marks right now. It also seems like Zach Wheeler is not going to be starting or not going to be able to start the regular season. So that puts you back as the rotation's now going to have Andrew Painter and Taijuan Walker in it as you lost Ranger Suarez and you don't bring in any more starting help. Again, I'll make it very clear I'm not high on Andrew Painter, so I don't think that's necessarily a replacement for somebody like a Ranger Suarez. Would have loved to hold on to Ranger to really solidify the starting rotation and maybe start Painter as a bullpen guy and then see what he can bring later into the season. You're going to have Aaron Nola. Can he get it going? He's going to have the Baseball Classic to kind of get a tune-up for himself. But we also saw this hurt the Phillies when they had the World Baseball Classic just a few years ago. It was Trey Turner's first year with the team, and the team came out pretty slow to start that season after the World Baseball Classic. I'm sure that the timing of everything, and you're not really able to get back into your routine. You're more so working with what's going to work for the baseball, the USA team. So we'll see how this affects anyone on the Phillies. They do have a hefty amount of players involved in the World Baseball Classic. Some I didn't even mention because I didn't know they were even on the Phillies. There's probably some lower-end bullpen pieces, but again, lots going on here with the Phillies. It's pretty much what we're going to be talking about a lot throughout the summer, and if you were listening to Locker Room Buzz last year, you know I'm very hot and heavy on the Phillies team here because I do have so much passion towards this team, and they continue to put out this product that isn't all that great. And if we want to keep it on the Valentine's Day theme here, they're pretty much a toxic relationship. I've said this multiple times with the Phillies that they continue to show or they continue to tell you that something's going to change or going to do better, but it's pretty much just a manipulation tactic here because nothing changes, nothing gets better. It's the same Phillies team year in, year out, and they only get worse, and they make it less interesting to watch every single year. So we'll see what happens with that. When we come back from this quick break, I do want to get into some things that I'm going to love headed into spring training, so stay tuned here on 95.3 WCHE. Welcome back to Locker Room Buzz. I'm CJ Tully, and like I said, still lots to talk about here on the show. I want to talk about some things I love as we get into the Valentine's Day spirit. Again, if anybody's not doing anything Valentine's Day, the phone number is 610-701-9243. Your boy is free. But like I said, lots to love here headed into spring training around the MLB. Starting off here with the Athletics. I love this lineup, and I'm going to go over a few lineups that I love headed into spring training. Then I'll get into some rotations and then some more. But starting off here with the Athletics lineup, I'm a fan of this team. I think they have the chance to do something great. They're not expected to do too much. They re-signed a lot of their players. I talked about that just a few weeks ago to some longer contracts. They're going to have some control of these guys for 5 to 7 years. So looking forward to see that. But look at this lineup. Nick Hertz at first base, Shea Langoliers catching, Brent Rooker DH, Tyler Schroedersholm in left field, Jacob Wilson at shortstop, Jeff McNeil, they bring him over from the Mets. He'll be playing second base and hitting sixth. So if you're hitting sixth, that means that's a pretty hefty lineup ahead of you. Lawrence Butler will be going number 7 in right field. Max Muncy, not the Max Muncy everyone's thinking, will be at third base, and then Denzel Clark in center field. This is a deep team. There's a lot of guys in here that if they play to their capabilities and their best of talent, this can be a great team going into the season. And you have kind of question marks around that West and the AL side of things. Can the Astros turn things around? Are you going to see the Mariners play to the same level they played last year? This team has a real chance to make a playoff appearance and maybe a run if everyone, again, is playing to their best capabilities. Going over to the next lineup that I love, the Baltimore Orioles. They made all of the right moves this year. I still hope that they can bring in some kind of help for the starting rotation. I think that's where they could still use somebody, but this lineup is pretty hefty, and I enjoy looking at this here. You have Taylor Ward in left field, Gunnar Henderson at shortstop. He needs to step it up. We didn't see the best out of him last year. Jordan Westburg at third base. They bring in Pete Alonso from the Mets. He'll be at first. You have Samuel Basillo at DH. Adley Rutschman moving down to the 6th spot at catcher. Jackson Holliday, he showed some flashes at second base. Tyler O'Neill, if he can stay healthy, we know what that bat can do. He'll be in right field. And then Colton Cowser in center field for the Orioles. So, again, a younger lineup that needs to start get things going. They had a very, very great year 2 years ago, being the 1 seed. Fell off last year tremendously. They bring in some more help in this lineup. We'll see if they can make another run this year. I like the Orioles' chances, though, to make the playoffs, and we'll see if this team can make a run. Next lineup I like, and I hate to say it, but the New York Mets, they have a very nice lineup set up this year. Francisco Lindor at shortstop, Juan Soto in left field, Bo Bichette at third base, Jorge Polanco at first. They bring in Luis Robert Jr. He'll be in center field. Brett Beatty at DH. We'll see what he can do. Obviously not the best years for him the past few years. Marcus Semien at second base. Francisco Alvarez catching. And Tyrone Taylor in right field. This lineup is very deep. You get to about that 7th spot with Marcus Semien. And that's a hefty lineup. You look at where their number 4 hitter is with Jorge Polanco, followed up by Luis Robert Jr. And we have Alec Bohm over there in our 4th spot. So that just goes to show you that, other teams are really making a difference here. And the Phillies sticking with Alec Bohm at the 4 hitter. The Cubs lineup, I love that as well. I'm very high on the Cubs, and I'll get to that in just a minute. But Michael Busch at first base. Alex Bregman, they bring him over from the Red Sox. A great addition there for them. Ian Happ in left field. Seiya Suzuki in right field. Pete Crow Armstrong in center field. Nico Horner at second base. Mosias Baceros at DH. Dansby Swanson at shortstop. And Carson Kelly at catcher, one of the better catchers last year. So Cubs lineup has the chance to do some damage. I love the rotation as well. And I also love the Cubs' chances at winning the World Series. I have them in my NL championship. I might take them as my World Series champion. I did sprinkle some on them right after the Super Bowl. I looked towards the baseball. And I already took the Chicago Cubs to be my World Series champions here in the 2026 season. So we'll see if that pays out. The Dodgers, you have to love their rotation and their lineup. Starting off with the lineup, Shohei Ohtani, Kyle Tucker, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, Max Muncy, Teoscar Hernandez, Andy Pedges, and Miguel Rojas. Again, only addition here being Kyle Tucker, and this was already a back-to-back World Series winning team. This rotation is actually insane if they all stay healthy. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, Shohei Ohtani, Emmett Shannon, and Roki Sasaki. See if he stays at the rotation or goes back to the bullpen, but he was phenomenal for them in their playoff run. Going over to more of the rotations, I am loving going into the spring training season here. Starting off with the Reds, Hunter Green, Andrew Abbott, Nick Lodolo, Brady Singer, and Rhett Lauder. This is a very underrated rotation here for the Reds. They were absolutely dominant over the Phillies in the past few years, so like to see their continuation. They made the playoffs last year. We'll see if they can do it again, maybe get a little bit deeper this year. The Tigers rotation like that as well. Tarek Skubal. They just added Framber Valdez. Phenomenal addition there by them to back up Skubal. Jack Flaherty, Casey Mize had a solid season to start last year. And they also bring in Justin Verlander as more of a charity work than an actual pitcher. I know at one point last year he was 1-10 or something like that with Justin Verlander. So see if he can get back to any kind of real production, but they bring him in as well. And the final rotation I'm loving here is the Red Sox. They have Garrett Crochet, Ranger Suarez, Sonny Gray, Brian Bello, and Johan Aviadado. Another very good rotation there within baseball. Again, a lot of these teams outdoing the Phillies, in my opinion, in free agency. They brought in some pieces needed. I'm loving this Cubs team, like I said. I'm loving what the Detroit Tigers did with their rotation. And this Athletics lineup and Orioles lineup, I think they're going to be very slept on this year. But I like them to make the playoffs, and I like each of them to have the chance to make a deep run if they all play up to their ability. That's the biggest thing here. Yes, the Athletics lineup is deep, but if they're not playing well, that's a pretty bad lineup. But with Nick Hertz, we saw what he did last year. Shea Langoliers, Brett Rooker, Tyler Schroedersome, Jacob Wilson, Lawrence Butler. These are all guys who could be hitting over, I say high 200s to 300 if they play as well as we know they can. And if they're all clicking at the same time, they can make a deep run. There was a point last year where they were tied with the Astros at the top of that division. So they have the ability to do something. It's whether or not they all play to their best at the time. Some other things I want to get into here before we get out of here. U.S. men's hockey will hit the ice for the first time in the Olympics on Thursday. They'll be playing Latvia at 3:10 our time, so be sure to check that out. I know I will be. I also just posted a video on TikTok at Let's Talk Sports, a little hype video for the men's hockey teams. You can check that out. It'll be going on Let's Talk Sports on Instagram shortly after the show, so you can check it out there as well. And while I'm on it, you can always check me out at letstalksports.com. That's TAWK sports.com. Check out all my podcasts and everything there. But sticking on the U.S. men's hockey team here, they have a very great team, and I think we have an actual chance to win some gold here. Starting off with the forwards, we have Matt Boldy, Kyle Connor, one of my favorite players, Jack Eichel, Jack Hughes, Jake Gunslow, Clayton Keller, Dylan Larkin, Austin Matthews, JT Miller, Brock Nelson, Brady Tkachuk, and Matthew Tkachuk, who are phenomenal when they put on that USA uniform, Tage Thompson, and Vincent Trocheck over from the Rangers. On the defensive side of things, some of the biggest names: Quinn Hughes, Charlie McAvoy, who got hurt last year in the Four Nations face-off, Jake Sanderstrom, and Jacob Slavin, all playing here for Team USA. And the goalie depth is incredible here for Team USA. Connor Hellebuck, Jake Ottinger, and Jeremy Swayman. This team has a real chance to go deep. And actually, if anybody has Netflix, you can check out, there's a documentary right now about the 1980 Olympics team and how phenomenal that run was. And it interviews some of the guys now, and they look back at everything. And it's a really cool documentary to check out. Again, if you haven't seen the movie Miracle, highly recommend. It's a phenomenal run that Team USA went on. It really makes the red, white, and blue just run through your veins. It's something to be proud of here to put on that jersey. And I know some people in the Olympics necessarily aren't all too thrilled to be representing the red, white, and blue, but I think being able to represent an entire country, like they say in Miracle, the name on the back means a hell of a lot more than the name on, or the name on the front means a hell of a lot more than the name on the back. So just representing that country, doing something bigger than yourself, it's got to be a cool feeling. I would love to represent the country in some aspect. So I can only imagine how cool it feels to go out there and represent the USA on the front of your chest. So that's something to watch. That'll be on Thursday. They'll be starting their play. Again, I think they have a real shot here to go deep. There's some other great teams. Of course, Team Canada will be a team. They beat the U.S. in the Four Nation faceoffs last year. So we'll see if we can get our revenge here as Team USA. Some Flyers will also be represented here within the World Baseball Classic and the Olympics. Not mixed up because they're all representing their country, but the Flyers will have some representation in the Olympics as well. Travis Sanheim for Team Canada. Dan Vladar, starting goalie, he'll be playing for Czechia. And Ramos Ristolainen, he'll be playing for Team Finland. So lots of representation around here between the Phillies and the Flyers to represent their country. It'll be a lot of fun to check those out. If you don't already, I would definitely check those out. World Baseball Classic for the U.S. will be starting March 3rd while we have the Olympics starting here on Thursday for Team USA. That'll be a lot of fun to watch. Also want to talk about some of the NHL honors in the Hall of Fame, as we did have those since the last time I spoke to you guys as well. Starting off here with some of the NHL honors, Matthew Stafford, he did win MVP over Drake May. Now, I was somebody who thought that Drake May did deserve it. I get he had a cakewalk schedule, but his numbers did prove that he was one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and Matthew Stafford losing to the Seahawks thought would have had, or I believe they lost 2 or 3 times to them, so I thought that might have damaged him a little bit, but Stafford, he did have a solid season, so he wins the MVP. I mentioned before with the offensive player going to Jackson Smith and Jigba, I do think this could be a Devontae Smith at some point. Again, if you lose A.J. Brown, making him that number one wide receiver, feeding him more, I do think he could be a 1,400-yard wide receiver, maybe a 1,500-yard. I believe Smith and Jigba, what did I say? I believe he was almost 1,700. Let me make sure I'm not mistaken there. Yeah, 1,700 yards there, almost 1,800 yards for JSN. So phenomenal year by him. He found the end zone 10 times as well. Bobby Wagner wins the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. He's been around the league for forever, so good for him to get some recognition for his good works. Mike Vrabel wins Coach of the Year. That one's pretty obvious. First year with the team. Turns the entire culture around. He started off with the Titans. They just weren't able to get it going. Turns the Patriots' first year into a Super Bowl. So phenomenal year by Mike Vrabel. Offensive Rookie of the Year goes to Torian McMillan over there from the Carolina Panthers. He had a very fun year to watch him as well. The Panthers could be a team to watch going forward as well, as they almost made themselves a playoff run as well. Defensive Rookie of the Year goes to Carson Schwisender. Salute to service. This is a word I wasn't all too aware of, but that goes to Christian McCaffrey. Love to see that. Servicemen and women always should be represented in some way. Caleb Williams wins the NFL Play of the Year. That was obviously the most incredible play I've ever seen. Christian McCaffrey also wins the Comeback Player of the Year award. This award, I feel like, always it changes how they want to view it. Sometimes it's to a player who was injured. Sometimes they go with a player who was horrible one year and then came back and played better the next. I'm under the impression that Comeback Player of the Year should be somebody who was hurt and came back and played phenomenal. But I can see where it might go back and forth as to whether or not you wanted to give it to an injured player or somebody who turned their career around. But that's kind of up for debate as to whether or not it's going to be MVP and Offensive Player of the Year. And also something that's interesting is MVP pretty much always is a quarterback award, while the offensive player goes to a wide receiver, sometimes a running back. So I think that kind of stipulation needs to be changed as well, that maybe, like, Saquon Barkley could have won MVP last year, but then he just goes to Offensive Player of the Year because that's kind of the position player award, while the quarterback just automatically gets the MVP. That's something I always think is interesting when it comes to awards like this. I know I've made a bigger stink about it when it came to the MLB and their MVP, because when it was between Ohtani and Kyle Schwarber, I look at it as who is most valuable to the team. Because let's get that first. MVP stands for most valuable player. Who's most valuable to their team? If you took Shohei Ohtani off the Dodgers, that team is still making the playoffs, and they're probably making a deep playoff run. If you took Kyle Schwarber off the Phillies last year, that team is not even a playoff team, and they're not even sniffing another 20 home run player. So Kyle Schwarber was a most valuable player to a team in the National League last year. Ohtani might have been the best player, but not on a team where he would have been taken off and it made tremendous difference. So that's where I stand on the MVP for baseball and for football. I just think that there needs to be a clearer view as to what that means when it comes to taking these awards. Is it just the best player? Is it somebody who makes the bigger impact? Is it a quarterback in football automatically? Those are things that I think need to be figured out. But going over to the Defensive Player of the Year, that goes to Myles Garrett, obviously setting the sack single-season record. Congratulations to him. His name will always be involved in those kinds of conversations as he's just a phenomenal player. And they should probably free him out of the Browns. I know Max Crosby's trying to get out of the Raiders. Maybe that's somewhere the Eagles could look to trade A.J. Brown, bring in Max Crosby. And then the Raiders side of things, you'd have Fernando Mendoza with A.J. Brown. Fernando Mendoza, a great personality over there coming from Indiana. Maybe he can work with A.J. Brown and kind of simmer his temper. So that would be fun to see if they were able to get A.J. Brown over to the Raiders. You have Ashton Genty in the backfield and Brock Bauer to work with as well. You also have Thornton, who I think is going to be a tremendous player this season for the Raiders on the outside, coming in from Tennessee last year. Thought he might have had a chance this year, but obviously we saw what the quarterback situation was there. But Mendoza and Thornton might have a great connection coming into next season. Final thing here on the NFL, they also announced the Hall of Fame class for 2026. Everybody pretty deserving in my opinion. Drew Brees gets first ballot, as well as Larry Fitzgerald comes in. Linebacker Luke Kuechly, he gets in there as well. We know his career ended early. He kind of put himself into retirement for his health and everything at a younger age, so good to see him still getting recognition and to just show the impact that he could make in such a short amount of time. Obviously, with him cutting his career short, maybe that could have hurt his chances, but the numbers he was able to put up in that shorter career, phenomenal for Luke Kuechly. Missing him on the field, of course. And then place kicker Adam Vinatieri gets in as well. We know his career with the Colts and the Patriots. Some of the biggest plays. I believe he's only the third kicker to make the Hall of Fame, so big congratulations to him. I don't know who was going to make it after him. I mean, I think he kind of sets the standard as to what a phenomenal kicker is. Can you get a Brandon Aubrey in there? Can you get a Steven Gostkowski? Justin Tucker maybe, but now he has kind of a tarnished name, I guess, because of the accusations that came out against him. So we might not see another kicker make the Hall of Fame. If maybe Max Crosby, maybe one of those guys. I don't know. I think Adam Vinatieri, though, might have been the last hope to see a kicker make the Hall of Fame, so we'll see what happens with that. That is a Hall of Fame that I've not yet been to. I've been to the College Football Hall of Fame and the MLB Hall of Fame, have not yet gotten out to Canton to see the NFL Hall of Fame. Maybe that's something I'll have to put on my to-do list. And then finally, you got running back Roger Craig. He was well ahead of my time. I was not familiar with Roger Craig before all of this. I think he's kind of the lower end of most people's knowledge. Obviously, a lot of these guys were in our lifetimes of players, which is also cool to see. That now the Hall of Fame class is kind of becoming players that we grew up watching. There's going to be the day where we see a Big Ben or we see an Aaron Rodgers, and some of these guys get into the Hall of Fame. So that'll be a lot of fun to see. We'll also see if Tom Brady gets first ballot. We see what's happening with Robert Kraft, and with Bill Belichick. So we'll see if Tom Brady can be a first ballot. I'm going to be really curious to see what they do with that situation. Because again, if you don't put Tom Brady in after all he accomplished, what is a first ballot Hall of Famer after that? So we'll check out all of that. Again, you can always check me out on Locker Room Buzz here every Wednesday, 11 to 12 on 95.3 WCHE. You can also check me out on my podcast and social medias at Let's Talk Sports. That's Let's TAWK Sports. You can check out my website at letstalksports.com. And then just on social media, that's Let's Talk Sports on Instagram and TikTok. Pretty much daily content gets posted there. And you can also check out my podcast, and one will be going up tomorrow, I believe, further breaking down the things that I think we can learn from the Super Bowl and some teams going forward, so check those out as well. And yeah, enjoy sports, guys. It's kind of coming to that point where sports are going to become less, so I'm going to get more creative with what we talk about here on the show, maybe branch out a little bit more other than sports. We could talk some other things about life and stuff like that until the baseball season truly kicks into high gear. And, you know, we are very high on baseball here at Locker Room Buzz, so you'll be getting a lot of content from that. But as always, check me out on Wednesdays right here, Locker Room Buzz, 95.3 WCHE. I'm CJ Tully. I'll check you guys next time.